Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Rivalry CS channel, and I'm your host, Richard Lewis, as always, and I got a very special interview subject for this Thanksgiving occasion. I've been promising we were going to get someone very special in, and we have. We've got one of the world's greatest in-game leaders, in my opinion. It is Karrigan, now of Mousesports, formerly of FaZe, formerly of Danish Greatness, and he's fresh back from China, where he just won a tournament. So thanks for coming. Great to have you here. Congratulations. And let's start by talking about how you did at the Asian Championships. Obviously, you went out there. I think it was a pretty decent field. There was actually quite a lot of good teams there. You beat a bunch of them, and you were able to actually win the trophy. So, surprising a lot of people, I got to be honest.
Yeah, I think the tournament started pretty good for us. Unfortunately, we played Amaga with a stand-in, but obviously we had an issue during the group stage. I think we lost to Ends, which was kind of throwing away the game, in my opinion. But as you know us, we always get a hard way to the playoff for the final, and that's why we made EG. So all in all, I think it's a good tournament for us. Could have been very bad in case we would have lost to Tyloo, lose 16-7, 16-8. That would not have been good for the team, but all in all, a victory like this was really needed for the team to prove kind of the team was still relevant. We had some stagnation since the major. I would say the last 2 months have been really tough on the team. We haven't really progressed as we wanted, like in the beginning. So winning this tournament really gives us confidence and make us play a little more calm during tournaments. I think that now we finally won a bigger trophy than a DreamHack Tour. So all in all, it was a good tournament, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to ask about the Tyloo game because that was crazy. That's like one of the. I mean, first of all, I thought that was the best series of the whole event because there was so much drama involved. It really looked like you guys were going to go out, and then you were able to battle back from. They had match point. It was overtime, and then it was 16-14 in the final map. So I mean, you cut it about as close as you could. What was going on there? Because it didn't look like you guys were as stressed as I thought you would be. Like whenever the camera was cutting to you guys, you seemed pretty positive, like it was just another day in the park. But honestly, you were as close as you can be to getting knocked out.
Yeah, I mean, the Opa's game, I knew that from watching the demo, they play very aggressively. So I didn't know what game plan they would have. Would they still play without any respect? Because the teams they play in Opa's was pretty much local teams in the Chinese area. So that means when you're Tyler, you play without respect. You just push all the time. We kind of knew what they wanted doing, but I think we were not prepared as a team as we could have been. So that's why they started out really, really strong on the city side in Opa's. It was tough to get into the game. When we changed to Inferno, we had a really good game plan. We knew we were gonna pick Inferno, but often we have a game plan and not doesn't always turn out to be that way. So I think we were confident the whole way that we could come back. I think we have showed many times with this lineup that we come back from very strange situations. I think one of the things is the nuke game is getting liquid in Montpellier.
Yep.
13-2 down, and we just come back against the best team in the world at that point. So we always know, even if it's 15-5, 15-7, that we can always come back. If we play our game, we stay calm. And that's what happened. I mean, we needed a clutch to come back. You always need that in a comeback. And Woxic won this 1-3 on Inferno, which kind of set the pace of us playing our game. And I think at that point, Tyloo didn't play their own game. So they kind of got maybe when you get 15 rounds, you're underdog, you start thinking, okay, we just play our game, like a little more passive, then the enemies are going to be a little more scared. But we have a lot of experience with the team. Coming back is just play your own game, playing your own pace, and start doing calls you maybe don't do often. So I was gambling a lot on the T side with fast up mid, and I think it worked out that we changed the pace of our game. So yeah, I agree. The title game was really tough, and also after that game, when you just know in 40 minutes you have the best of 3 in the final, I just thought to myself, okay, we need to throw out our playbook right now and play however we feel, and that's also why we changed our play style in the final.
Well, I was going to ask about that as well because I was talking about it on the podcast to do with Thorin about how when it got to the final, everybody seemed to like step up their game. There was like a lot of really good kind of discussion about who was your most valuable player over the course of the tournament. But in that final, you popped off. There was, I mean, you were just running through smokes, and it felt like you were getting the entry kill, like, you know, every round. It was ridiculous. So was that part of that, because you guys had played in this really grueling series, that you wanted to kind of like get out there and just play aggressive and high tempo so you could kind of get the final over before you started feeling fatigue?
Yeah, I mean, there's two ways to think it. First of all, we played ends a few days before that, and often here I changed the veto, knowing that I don't want to play the same maps exactly. I know if we let Mirage through, they would pick it, and by banning it, I knew they're gonna pick Train, which we didn't play that tournament, meaning we were already on that map. And picking Inferno, it's always hard to pick the same map against the same enemy, especially if you want the map. I feel like you have to change up your playstyles. So the first rounds, I kind of just want to see how they adapted compared to the last I had on Inferno. And then I just said to myself, I have to lead by example. I'll go up without respect on Banana and kind of just lead the team, because I don't know how the team will react on a final. Still young guys. We haven't been in a bigger final, so I thought to myself, I just show no respect. My team will follow and see how that evolves. And obviously, it helped a lot. Me doing a lot of injury kills. So
You
yeah,
definitely
I
did,
think
yeah.
I had a good feeling on Banana and kind of knew how they adapted in that game. So that's why I feel very comfortable just going up Banana alone.
And just in general, you know, the kind of development that's been going on at Mouse Sports, it's been really interesting to watch. You know, I always felt you would win tournaments, not necessarily this one. You know, I had Evil Geniuses as the favorite, but I think since you've joined Mouse Sports, they've definitely looked a lot better, and players individually have really started to come into form. So I want to talk a little bit about Ropz, because when you first came into Mouse Sports, I think Ropz had been in like this really, you know, kind of a bad patch of form. He wasn't playing to the same standard we all know he can. He was one of the best players in the world, you know, when he kind of burst out onto the scene and joined Mouse Sports as a professional player. And then he just kind of seemed to lose confidence, wasn't playing as effectively. And then when you joined, all of a sudden, Ropz was getting back to, you know, some semblance of what he used to be. So, you know, again, me and Duncan, when we're doing the podcast, you know, I'm always talking about how you're the player whisperer. You know, if a player's got bad form, you get Karrigan on the team, and then he seems to know what to do. Is that true? Did you do a lot of work with Ropz to help him rediscover his form? Is it coincidence? Is it mostly him? You know, what's going on there?
I think a bit of both. I think the way I'm setting up Ropz is how he used to play a lot. When you're in a lineup for a long time, and I know it on Mouse Sports, they kind of didn't believe in the end. It's really hard to stay motivated and work on yourself. Um, but what I did in the beginning was obviously just put Ropz in the situation he strives as a player. Often I've looked at his demos, how he plays, how he turns around, and how he likes to adapt on the map, right? So I just put him there and try to set up him up to be the lurk and playing the small sides and stuff like this. So
Mm.
basically, we are doing everything to set up Ropz. Not meaning that everybody else doesn't have the role within the team, but I feel like if we can turn Ropz into a Sipnix kind of player, you have very unique player in your team, and you can always rely on Ropz to turn up, right?
Mm.
So what I've lately done is we're trying to put Ropz outside his comfort zone.
Mhm.
So that means he improve as a player, because if he's in comfort zone, he's really great. But if you play a good team, they will try to put you out of your comfort zone and not let you play your own style, right?
Mm.
So trying to put him in some situation and position he hasn't played in, I think that will make him even better player down the line. And I think he showed that at the event again. And the last few months, he's been working really hard. Also starting watching demos of the enemies, which he didn't do before that. That means he's trying to make some new stuff within the team, and I think that helps him and also the team really much. So I'm just really happy to have it on the lineup.
And of course, the other player that kind of was a bit of an enigma, you know, when he joined the team, was Woxic. We didn't really know kind of, you know, how he was going to be as well. This was somebody that is considered a very inconsistent AWPer, but you know, when it works, it's brilliant. When it doesn't, you know, not so much. He won the MVP, I think, the HLTV MVP for the Asian Championship. You know, how's his game developing, do you think? Because I think he's a hugely important player. I think right now we've got kind of a lack of, you know, world-class, top quality AWPers just generally. and I think he's easily got the capability to be one of those if he can maintain consistent form. So have you been working with him on that at all, or is it going to be same old Woxic, and he was just on at this championship?
I mean, when you first get players, like when we did Mousesports, I have to let people play their own style. I have to put my style a little aside and slowly work them into how I want the players to work within my system, right? So I come in, I see what the players are able, I give a lot of freedom to the players, and then I see, okay, if I give too much freedom to all players, there's some players that maybe do it too much, you know, like not playing within the system. So lately, I think Woxic has played really, really great. There's obviously flaws in his game, which I'm working on with him and the coach as well, because he has been in a team where he was used to be the carry. If Hellraisers was supposed to win a match, he had to go off, right? He has to go off. If he didn't go off, Hellraisers couldn't really perform on a high level. So he has been in these teams where everything was, if he didn't perform, they didn't have a chance to win, right? And here he knows with the team he has here, he doesn't have to have a really great game for us to win, but he has to play it smart sometimes, right? So I think that's something we work on with Woxic is he has one of the highest skill I've ever seen with an AWPer. Like when he's on form, you cannot stop him. You know, you can put him in a situation where he's 1-on-4, 1-on-3, and he comes out on top, even though he does maybe mistakes during that round, but he's just so fast that he can get out of it, right? So we're trying to make sure that Voxic also can play the more passive style. It's not his style, but he has to be able to do the matches where the enemies are good in shutting it down, right? If he's always doing the same peaks, even though he's really good at them, at some point some people will counter it, right? So that's something we're working on with him playing a more device style, I would say, that is able to have these plan A to C or D even in a round, you know. So if you do a peak here, you fall back, you do next peak, and you have a third and a fourth peak in within the round instead of having one peak and you just kill four or you die, you know. So that's something we work on with him, and he's really improving on that really fast. So I mean, he's gonna be really really great. Like he showed it in Asia, and he's gonna show it in 220 as well.
And then the kind of final question that I had about the lineup, because we all know, Chris J is Mr. Solid, Mr. Reliable, Mr. Dependable, Mr. Mousesports in a lot of way, is obviously Frozen and the development of him. When this roster was thrown together, we were like, again, kind of sort of, there's a lot of unknowns here. There's a lot of question marks, and Frozen's development as a pro player was one of them. I thought he was excellent in Asia. I think, especially in the semi-final, I want to say. I think he had some really crucial rounds, and his development as a player has been very exciting to watch. And you seem to have a good relationship with him as well. Whenever there's been a close round, or whenever he gets a clutch, or whenever he does something good, you seem to especially be kind of like, trying to pump him up, and you seem to work quite well with him. So what can you tell us about his development and what it's been like to kind of nurture this young talent?
Yeah, the worst thing is when you get a young player, you don't know how his personality is. I obviously watch demos before I get the players within my team to see. Okay, you can actually see in demo if they communicate or not. And Frozen, when I watched the demos, he reminded a lot of like kind of young NiKo and young Kjaerbye, the way he moved around the map, a lot of freedom. And when the player's playing like that, he's calling into his play style. That means if you see he's calling for the nades and stuff like this, right? So I knew he was a really great player if you put him in the position he likes to play, right? But one thing I really admire about Frozen is he's so mature. Like I'm sharing room with him. I've been in room with him for the last 8 months. He's so mature for a 70-year-old guy. He knows about everything. He likes to improve. He listens a lot to me. And also what we kind of did with it in the beginning of the team was trying to put Chris as the secondary caller, meaning we put Frozen as the entry fragger, which I think is a lot of, as a 70-year-old being entry fragger, you have to have a really strong mentality. He has that, but when you're young, you want to perform on the highest level. You want to have the good stats. You want to be MVP, right? And as an entry fragger, you really need to have a great tournament to get that, because often you die or you don't close out rounds. So we took the decision after, I think it was Turkey, which was my backup plan with this team. If we didn't perform, we put Frozen in a more like secondary lurk together with Ropz, and it really showed this tournament. He played really great. I think this one of the most impactful tournaments he had with us so far, and it really helped him putting in that role where he can play his own kind of style within my system. And he's still learning that phase, but he's a really, really clever guy within the game. So I think you'll see much more him the next couple of tournaments. And also putting Chris back into the fragger we all know from Mousesports. So we have this, I think, with perfect roles now. Because when you make a new team, I don't know the players how they act as a players and roles. So I think what we've done now is how we need to be for the 220.
Mm. So one last question about mouse sports. Well, actually, no, I do have two questions, but here's the first. Just the fans. One of the things that I've noticed, I've compared them to Arsenal fans. If you follow football, well, I was watching all the Reddit threads as you were going through the tournament, and I think when you guys lost to Ents, there was like posts where it was like, oh, it's just we're always close, but just not good enough. We need to make changes. I think we've kind of peaked with Karrigan. It was stuff like this, and it just seems so silly to me because obviously I remember where mouse sports were before you joined. A lot of fans don't seem to. Do you follow any of that? Does that like affect you? Because they were all loving you, and obviously when you won the tournament, like, oh my god, Karrigan's a genius. Fans can be fickle like that. Not all of them, obviously, but are you aware of that? Do you follow that on the forums or anything?
Yeah, I follow. Often I read the comments and stuff like this, but it doesn't get to me. It depends which mental state I am. If I have a really bad game, I just shut off from social media, obviously.
Yeah, that's the smart thing.
But yeah, but it just comes down to how I handle it. I mean, I take it with a smile. Often these fans want the best out of the team, right? They want, if they're real Mousebots fans, they want us to win everything. Also, we had enough time. This joke that we need more time is obviously also fun. But in the end, I think it just comes down to Mousesports was really great in 2017. I think they were top 3, top 5 team for a longer time, but we all saw how it ended in the end with the old lineup. So maybe the expectations are really high to this lineup, which is also good because we also have high expectations to ourselves. So in the end, doesn't really matter to me. I'm just happy we have fans following us, even though it's bad sometimes, but it's also good when you win, right? So it's just part of the game, and I think all organizational teams have the same issue that some fans are just jumping the boat whenever it goes bad, and when it goes good, they're always on the same boat, right?
Yeah, they change their flares. You know, I'm a Team Liquid fan now, or whatever. You
Yeah,
know,
exactly.
And then the last question, the thing I did want to ask is, and it's going to lead hopefully into the next set of questions I got. When you joined Mouse Sports, my understanding from hearing like rumors behind the scenes and stuff was that you had other offers. There was quite a few. There was quite a lot of interest in, from other teams, and there was some interest from North American teams as well, especially. So I got to ask, kind of why you chose Mouse Sports, especially given that it was with a lineup that had kids in it, unproven talent in it, a lot of question marks. So what made you settle on Mouse Sports? Why did you think it could work?
I mean, the funny story is once I got benched in FaZe, I wrote out to the 3 guys in Mousesports as Oskar, Son, and Ropz. They were not interested in playing with me. They wanted a different lineup. So those 3 guys in Mousesports didn't want to play with me, and they
Wow.
kind of decided the lineup in the end. So obviously, I decided to go for another option. Started looking to NA, also some Danish teams, but I couldn't figure out the problem in the Danish teams. Oh wait, I crashed. I'm back. I couldn't figure out the problems in the Danish teams, so I decided to look more deep into the NA, building a super team over there. Kind of put myself in a situation where I can build on something more like FaZe, where you come into a lineup, you see the options, you see maybe changes down the line, and you have the money to back it up. That was the most important thing for me, was I could find a home, I could get the players I wanted, and we all on the same page of becoming a top 5 team in 220, right? So when I was about to move to NA, I had prepared everything, ready to sell my flat, done everything with the taxes here in Denmark, and then Mouse came saying the completed lineup was about to rebuild, and that kind of gave me one of the options I wanted. I wanted to create a team where I get my own players within my team. I really wanted to play with Woxic for some time. I think he has a great potential, a great talent. He's a nice guy as well. So that kind of came down to right before I had to sign with someone else that Mouse actually changed the whole lineup and reached out to me kind of build the lineup, which I like to do. That I can put the players on paper I want, and also have the opportunity in the future, if it doesn't work out, that they back me up getting the players I want down the line, right? So I was happy with the lineup I got here in Mouz, and that also means we could compete on a high level directly. We pretty fast came in top 10 within 2-3 months, I think.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's really important for me, that when I wake up every day, I can see improvement in the team, right? Because when you get old, it's hard to grind for 14 hours if you don't see improvement within the team. So I was just happy I got that offer in the end.
Yeah, and definitely no consideration from you about going to North America, because some of the contracts they're throwing around here in America now are insane. I mean, kind of feels that a lot of European talent can get paid, even if they don't fully necessarily believe in the project. There's a lot of NA orgs that'll throw money your way.
Yeah, I mean, money is just part of it, right? Obviously, if you can make a lot of more money if you live in NA compared to Denmark when you compare the taxes. You all know the taxes in Scandinavia is really high, but when I'm looking at my career, I just don't want to make that few extra bucks into my career. I rather want the trophies. I rather want to wake up every day knowing I can become the best again. So I want to achieve one of the few things I have in goal is basically bringing a third team to number 1 in the world. That's 3 different lineups, 3 different periods of CSGO. If I can do that, I think I kind of proved something about my legacy, that rebuilding teams. So that's why I wake up every day, and moving to NA with the practice is really tough. Moving away from everything could maybe be harder on me than I actually wanted. So I'm happy where I am right now, and obviously money is always a great thing, but trophies for me is way more important.
So now I get to talk to you about FaZe, right? This is the part of the interview where I really have no idea, kind of what you're gonna say, because the FaZe situation to me is just so bizarre. It always seemed really strange what was going on, especially towards the end. So I got to ask you, and I don't know how much you can say, but you've always struck me as kind of a straightforward and truthful guy. But I also understand in Counter-Strike, sometimes you've got to be a little bit political and diplomatic. So anyway, when you got dropped by FaZe, it was just so strange, because I thought they must have another in-game leader in mind, because we all knew what this team was meant to be. FaZe was meant to be the super team. FaZe was meant to be 4 incredible talents, 1 in-game leader, winning all the trophies in style. And instead, kind of towards the end, it was a very insipid team. You could tell there was, tension in the lineup. And then when they dropped you and it was NiKo's going to be the in-game leader, it is one of the most crazy decisions I think I've seen. So given that you were the guy that got dropped, what was going on in the team at that time?
I think we need to go further back. I think obviously the Olof situation really took the turn out in the team. Played with standards for 4 months. We get Olof back. We have 1 week practice. Expectations are we are the best team. We're gonna become the best team within the next few months, right? Suddenly we are losing very close games, E-League. People start not trusting the way I'm calling. Obviously there was a situation right after we won Sydney 3-0 with Exist. The team told me they were thinking about replacing me with Exist while Olof was gone. So they wanted to give me a second chance while we had stand-in, which was really tough on me. How can you improve a team? We don't really practice as a team because we don't know when Olof is coming back, who are we going to play with for a longer time. So I tried to improve on the stuff. Then once we hit the major with Olof back in the lineup, it just didn't feel right. The trust was not there. I could feel it, the pressure from within the team. The problem about pressure as an in-game leader is not from the outside community. You don't really care about that. Also not the casters, the talents. When your team start pressuring you, they start thinking about replacing you. It's really tough as an in-game leader to just do the calls you feel is right, because you always feel like somebody's second guessing you, right? As a whole team. So at the major, I decided after a specific round against Navi where I did a call, somebody else within the team said, "Are you sure you want to do that?" And then I decided, okay, let's not do it. And then we run in, we die, we lose the whole game. And after the game, I said to the team, if you're not going to do exactly as I say in these high pressure moments, I'm not able to call, and I think somebody else should call. So that's why we decided to let NiKo call, and we went through the major. Go back to New York. This team decided me to call. Instantly, the negative feeling, the mood was really bad. We lost out there, and at that moment, I knew if we're not gonna change something in the team, I'm the guy who's going out. So we decided to place NiKo as in-game leader. We come to November, I think it is, after Blast. I get a call from FaZe saying, yeah, we're about to sell NiKo to Miba. I think the rumor was out as well that they want to sell Miba to Miba. So like, yeah, you are gonna rebuild FaZe, so get prepared for that. 10 days later, we're going to Lisbon. I have no news, and then I'm out of the team. So the the feeling of that moment was like I was supposed to rebuild FaZe with the new player or two new players or however we looked at the things. And in the end, I was the guy going out. So I don't know what happened there. I think the deal didn't go through with me, obviously. So in the end, I was the guy getting cut, which makes sense. Something had to happen in FaZe, and I feel like if half the team didn't trust me, yeah, well then I have to go, right? Because it's really hard to work with a team where not everybody's fully invested in my calls.
So yeah, why does NiKo then go on to become the in-game leader? Because I think NiKo's a fantastic player, and I've met NiKo and I've watched him play since he burst, onto the scene. Back when he was on the bench at Mousesports. I think he's just a phenomenal talent, but an in-game leader, I don't think he is, and I've never felt that. And whenever he seems to become the in-game leader in the teams, there's an element where it doesn't seem to affect his performance too badly. Does sometimes, but not all of the time. But those teams generally tend not to do well. I just don't think he's a tactical mastermind or anything like that.
I think he has a tactical good understanding. He's a good in-game leader in the regard he's good in putting himself in a situation where he can perform, right? As an in-game leader, if you can't make your star player perform, he wants to get impact, right? So in the end, NiKo didn't feel like I could put him in a situation he wanted to do. So when you're calling, you can always call around yourself. Like you're saying, you guys going here, I'm gonna lurk or whatever, right? He has a good tactical understanding as well. I think he kind of felt comfortable calling during the time where I was not calling the team. But you have to sometimes value also what I'm doing mid round while he's on the side of the side calling what we should do, right? I'm doing all the micromanage with Rain, going up, connect on Mirage, let's take ladder room, and then he does a call, right? Suddenly, when you're in-game leader, you actually have to do both the call, but also make sure you adapt on the round. You can't be a caller and then have a secondary caller doing the small things around the map, If you're the voice on T side, you really have to have a strong voice on how to do it, when to do it, how do we approve this round, right? So the plan was after benching me getting in-game leader, but everybody said no to them, as far as I know. They couldn't get the players they wanted, ended up having NiKo calling, which he was doing 2-3 months prior to that as well. So I thought it was a backup plan where he could still call the way he wanted, and it was a short-term solution with Adren. I think when you look backwards, and the same with Neo, waiting for in-game leader to be available. And we always know it's hard to get an in-game leader who you need to trust. And if you join FaZe Clan, right? If you're not number one, you're doing bad. Like the second your FaZe is giving you offer, if you're number two in the world, it's not good enough. That's how it is. The players you have, the money you have, the brand you have to be number one. And I also think that makes you a little scared of in-game leader joining FaZe Clan, knowing what happened to maybe me before that, because you didn't perform as number one, but you're number 5 in the world, which was not good enough.
If you could go back and do things differently, okay, so I was very brutal in my assessment because again, I have a tendency to try and just think about things in team perspective, from a team perspective, how do we get to the better place? And if you have to make a brutal cut and you have to cut someone from a lineup, sometimes you just have to do it. It's business. It's not personal. And the situation with Olof, we can all sympathize, we can all empathize. It was a difficult time for him, but him being in and out of the team, as you said yourself, was starting to impact on your ability to practice together, your ability to have a solid lineup. You were using stand-ins, like, you won a tournament with Kroman, the Norwegian dude. I don't even know where he is right now. So if you could go back in time, do you think it would have been better for the team if they'd just permanently benched Olof and replaced him until he could work through all of the issues that he was facing?
It was obviously a decision we had to make, right? The problem was about we didn't know how long Olof would be gone. The first thought was, okay, he's gonna be 2-3 months away. He's gonna take his private time off, and then we take it from there, right? That's why we had Exist for time being. And the only reason we let Exist go to Fnatic was because Olof was coming back. And then he was about to come with Exist to us, and 4 days before that, he said he's not ready. At that moment, I knew that was break or make for the team. We had 4 days to find a stand-in. We had 2 tournaments in a row, which is supposed to be with Olof, right? And we ended up playing 3 tournaments with Chrome, I think ECS, Brazil, and Cologne. And at that period of time, we didn't practice because practicing with a stand-in where you only think it's this tournament. It was different with Exist because we knew it was a longer time. It was 2 months. We had a lot of online games, so we had to practice right. That's also why it felt better with Exist. We know he was perfect fit in the role, secondary caller as well, doing some stuff for the team like Olof was doing. But with Croman, it was a completely different player. I had to play Olof's role because he's not used to play that role. So my calling, my play style, how we proved as a team just vanished because we didn't play the same style with Croman as with Exist and Olof. So it just felt completely unnatural how to play it, even though we won. But you always play off what you can do on the fly, right? The guy doesn't know the tactics, we don't practice. So should we have benched Olof for a longer time? I don't think so. I think Olof was a vital piece of the lineup. The way he is, his personality is really great within the team. So I just mean it's just unfortunate that Olof came back, but then didn't come back at that moment because for me that was the break moment. That was where I got to know that they want to replace me, but we're giving you a chance. Olof's coming back next week, and then it doesn't come back. So everything hard work I could do, I couldn't do. So for me, it felt really knock on my head in confidence and believe in the team that this is gonna be the same team as it was, for example, at Boston. So I think that was the moment.
Did Olaf himself offer to kind of leave and stand down? Because there was, again, the story that is out there in the community is that it was all like the team, the other 4 players were like, listen, take as long as you need. We'll play with stand-ins and we'll wait for you. That's what people understand.
That's 100% what we did. We knew Olof was important. We knew we can't afford like it will take 2 to 3 months. But I think at the end it took like 4 to 5 months maybe. We knew that we could play with Exist for a few months, practice, and then come back when Olof be ready for rest of the season or next season, But I think the moment we thought he came back, he didn't come back. Mix that with the result we had. Always that was a tough situation for the team, and then once you get back, you think it's the old club back, like you're all back together. Now you can finally start winning, and you don't. And then suddenly with the players you have, the expectation you yourself have, it just all mixed back around that area. I think it was June to July was really tough on me as a game leader, and also think for the rest of the guys, because you don't improve. I mean, if you don't practice a team for 4 months, and Astralis is coming back, SK is coming back, they all improve every day, right? And we don't move. We actually get worse every day because we don't practice. So I think that was in the end there was too big gap between the teams for us, and the expectations we had was here, and we actually only delivered here. So I think that's the issue back then, especially for me. I don't know with other guys, but that's how it felt like for me. That was pretty tough period of life.
Well, I got to ask. No questions about FaZe would be complete without talking about the Boston Major. I remember seeing you after that final. When I can't remember what bar we all went to, and I remember talking to you briefly, and it was incredible. Actually, I remember you very distinctly being kind of just, what can you say about that? Sometimes it's not your day, I think is what you said, and there's nothing you can do about it. And certainly watching the final, it kind of felt like there was just nothing you could sort of do to break Cloud9 down. They were coming up clutch every time they needed it. Everything seemed to be going their way. But it's remembered not as sort of a Cloud9 victory, because obviously the team afterwards kind of broke apart. They didn't have a dynasty or an era afterwards. they didn't do a whole lot of much, actually. Some of the players who played in that lineup even retired. Meanwhile, FaZe, as you said, they had to keep going on. They went to tournaments. They won some tournaments. Do you like look at that major now as kind of like something that got away? Is that like a horrifying nightmare for you, or are you still as philosophical as you were after the final?
I mean, you have to say also Cloud9 played really well at that tournament, right?
Sure,
They perform
yeah.
on a high level. Um, um, but what can you say, right? I think we did maybe for the first time I can look in the mirror say we did a mistake in the veto playing the same map over and over again. We picked overpass. At that moment, we felt really comfortable on cash, so that's on me that we picked that map. But also when you talk with him after, I think I talked to Tim automatically. Why are you playing with Orban B on overpass? He said like we watched all your demos the day before, so I decided just to play Orb like you guys for the first time. So that's basically how comfortable they felt just putting an orb on B on overpass area round, which they never done before. Kind of put me off our game plan, so to say. Inferno, obviously, that's a tough game, right? It's 15-11. We have no money.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have a timeout, but when I watched the game after, you should do something that you can never imagine you would do. You win a round, but you actually have to eco. I think that nobody in so high pressure situation with 15 seconds left is gonna say to himself, "Let's save," because we have 3.4k. They have full money. We actually have shit money now if you buy. But if you do an eco, we only need one round. But it's really hard to make a call like that with cold blood in the heart to say like this is eco, even though we run around. Like it's very hard to say, right? So we bought up that round. It was the old money system, meaning we didn't really have weapons. So we actually lost one weapon round in those 15 to 11. So it was a choke or not. I think if you look in the mirror now, I'll learn from my mistakes. 15-11, do an eco. Make sure you have really good economy, especially on T side Inferno. It's tough to win without good weapons and good economy. So in a way, it was a tough time on Inferno, and I think they played really well, and we maybe underestimated them a little after beating them. I think 10-0 in maps the last 7 months. So I think it's a bit of both.
So, I mean, are you saying that you kind of feel a little bit responsible for it because of that call?
I mean, in a way you do, but also have to understand the situation we're put in, right? When there's 10 seconds, if somebody asks, "Should we buy? Finn, are we buying or what?" And I'm like, "Yeah, wait, I need to think what we're gonna do with this money, right?" It's a situation where maybe I can't remember we had timeout. We should have done that 100% to calm down. The veto is obviously on me in some way. I felt like I should have moved the veto around, but I felt comfortable on the map. Though knowing some of the players didn't feel comfortable on the map, but I feel comfortable as a caller. And sometimes you have to go with your gut feeling, but also with the players, right? It has to be a two-way street and not only one-way street. So when it comes down to V2, yeah, kind of responsible for that. Inferno, it's a very tough call to make. Felt we had a good game plan, but they clutched a lot of rounds. Schedule played one of the best games I ever seen them play,
Yeah,
and I think
ever.
that also put them over the edge. And obviously they had a good team with Stu, Automatic, Tarek, and Skadoodle, so and Rush as well. So in a way they had a good skill lineup, and we all see that different players, different lineups now, right?
I got to ask as well. I mean, like you were, as I said, philosophical. Had a few drinks, drown your sorrows, but back to work tomorrow, right? But there was some people on the team. I didn't know how the rest of the guys would take it. Like you and Olof, you had majors in your locker, so it's not like you've got that trophy. You've done it. But Guardians, the player that I always felt would have took it the hardest because he's been in 2 finals, runners up both time and been on the favorite team, I think, both times. Can you say a little bit about kind of how did he take it? Was the team all emotionally on the same level, or did some players take it harder than others?
I think it is the first time I ever smashed a keyboard. I went out backstage and I just smashed my keyboard and left it there. That's one
That's
of
why
the
you were
first
so
time
calm when I saw you. Right? Took
that
it out on the keyboard.
actually the first time where I rage. I felt like this was out to win. Obviously, it felt really bad. I felt in some regard that I let down the team in some ways, obviously, and I kind of blaming myself. And I'm always do that. If we lose, I always take responsibility in some regard when you're the caller, because you could put the rounds differently, right? So I think in the end, maybe some players really took it harder a few days after. Obviously, we took a week off. Nobody really talking with each other, just getting out of the system. I went vacation, NiKo went vacation, just to reset for the season, because it's start of the season, right?
Yeah.
It's the worst thing. The major start of the season, we start the season with a final loss like this. So I think some players actually have in their mind a few months after that we should have won that. Like, when they start thinking about replacing me, they think back to the major. I can't see in a situation where they feel like, yeah, Finn haven't done it great. We have been in 4 finals. Maybe they said, yeah, but he cost us the major final. I don't know that, but it could be one of the reasons why I got replaced in the end, was like they maybe in a way blamed me for the major loss. But that's hard to say. I don't know if there's something before that, after that, that kind of put a situation like this. But I think the hardest one for the team was Katowice major final. Not major final. Katowice final. 3-4 weeks after, we come in the final, we lose in so bad way against Fnatic on train. And I think at that moment I knew this one is even more tough than the major, because you could lose a final in a bad way. But if you lose 2 finals in a bad way 2 times in a row with the 2 biggest tournament of the season, then it's something is wrong, right? That's what you feel like. You feel you're so close, but yet you get another team who beats you, who you regularly beat, and you can't close out in the final. So I think the Katowice kind of destroyed the feeling of the team completely. Not the major final, but the final after really took the toll as well. I mean,
that was a super close series. I mean, you had a couple of overtimes in there as well, if I remember. It was, it was a hell of a final.
Yeah, it was like I think it was 1917 on train, and we lose. I think it's 2 times Plush is doing ace within 5 rounds. He's going full ham, 35 frags, and he has been quiet the whole game. But in the final game, he turns up and he destroys us. So I think that one, especially for me, I think also some other players, that one hurt the most. Because sometimes you can lose a final, but if you lose it 2 times within a month in this way, it's really tough as a team. How do you recover from that, right? Because then you start pointing fingers, maybe within the team, like he's not performing, he's not preparing, he's not playing as much as he should, whatever, right? So I think that one was the nail in the coffin, so to say.
So let's go further back in time, because I got to talk to you about Astralis and kind of how things kind of went down there. And again, there's even more distance now. I don't know how often you've talked about it, but again, you've always seemed to be kind of very polite and diplomatic when you end up invariably leaving these teams. But at the time when you left Astralis, the rumors that I was hearing were pretty far out, man, for a team. I was hearing stuff that when you were doing the vetoes, players were basically telling you what maps to pick and saying they wouldn't play if you vetoed maps they didn't want to play on. And it was very clear that with all the rumors that were going around, the players, it wasn't a case of, we don't want you to make certain calls. It was that the players had lost kind of all confidence in your leadership, which seemed crazy because, you guys were a number 1 team, and sure, you started to drop off a little bit. You were getting the quarterfinals, semifinals, still an excellent team. But it just seemed so kind of ruthless what was going on. So what sort of happened towards the end of Astralis after that great run that you had?
Yeah, I think when it started to go bad, it must have been when we replaced Kjaerbye with Cajun. I got in a player I really didn't know much about. That's also why after that I started always watching demos on what kind of player he is, what is he saying into, what kind of personality is he, right? To get a feeling of the guy getting in the team. So when we got Kjaerbye, I thought like, okay, replace him with the roles that Cajun has. It showed within the next 2 months that was not the role Kjaerbye can play, and he's not feeling comfortable playing it. And then it all started from there. I think like the trust and way that I lead, Kjaerbye was not used today. He was very used to MSL, methodical way to do it. And also the guys started believe in the very explosive playstyle I have, where I just go off feeling, not completely a game plan. I have an idea what I want to do during a game, but often just go off my feeling, what I see with my own eyes, and go from there, right? So in the end, we had clashes as well before we got Kjaerbye, with the coach and the vice as well wanted to play a specific way. I tried to do that for 3 months, like really trying to understand the way they want to structure the team, because I felt like maybe they were right. Maybe that's the meta right now with Navi performing. That's very slow play style. I think Mipa as well back then had this slow play style. So that was the meta back then, with the teams playing very slow, right? And we played very fast aggressively. So we kind of already split it there. How should we play as a team, right? And in some way, I wanna call the way I'm supposed to call, what I feel doing around, and not second guess what I want to call, but call what the players want to hear. So it all started there, and from one thing to another. I took a talk with the coach, Zonic, which is a really good friend of mine. I told him my situation, that if I'm not able to call how I want, and you can give me 2 months where I just do whatever, like do how I want it as the team, and if it doesn't, if you don't get good results, you can bench me. I'm fine with it. I just want to make sure I have a last chance where I want to do it my way, because I can't really transform to this very methodical player. The way I lead has to be very methodical, setups where you know exactly what to do. But I believe in freedom as well in some regard, right? So that was the biggest clash we had. So I told him, I actually said, I think Leif was exactly the best fit you could get for the way you want to play. And that's how it ended. One day to another, I said, I want to go the way I want to play, or else I think you should find another player. And that's what happened. And 1 week after, I went to FaZe. So it was really fast, in that period of time. And I think they benched me for online game, where they put in Deagle Notan. And when I talked with Sonic after, it was just basically to calm me down and make sure that I'm coming back into the team. But I was already in my mind deciding that it's hard for me to play that specific style. So I just said instantly that I think it's time for you guys to find another, and for me as well.
Did you feel a little bit, I don't want to use melodrama, but I know how much you did work-wise back when the team was kind of out there and before you ended up joining TSM, back when you were question mark. I know how involved you were in that process of actually getting the team into a big organization. And you were also at the forefront of kind of the Astralis deal and everything else. So the fact that you'd sort of helped deliver the team, to the promised land of being in a big organization with big salaries, big support, and then it sort of counted for nothing towards the end. That it kind of just felt like you said, it was like you're in the team, you benched for a little bit, and you're out, and it all happened within the space of a week. Do you feel like those players kind of fucked you over?
Not at all. I think it was a mutual agreement, because we were in New York, and I asked for a team meeting, talked with the team, saying if I don't can get the way exactly how I want to call, because I have problems the last 2 months playing your style, then I think it's for the better for all of us that we move on to different situations. That means you get a new player and I move to on a different team. So in a way, I put them in that situation instead of just waking up every day knowing I have to do their specific style they want to play, which obviously works, but it doesn't work with in-game leader who can't do it to the perfection they want, right? So I think it was both really good for both of us. I went to FaZe. I got everything I wanted in FaZe. I could call the way I wanted. I could get the players I wanted. So in the end, I really think it paid off for both of the teams. Astralis went on to win few majors, as you know, with a great in-game leader as Glaive. So in the end, I think it was a good decision for both of us. I couldn't see us win a major. It would take longer for me to get used to exactly that style, and maybe it wouldn't even work at all. Maybe 3 months later, I would just be even worse. And I also knew at that point, if I keep on going in Astralis, I keep on doing really bad, my value as an in-game leader would fall drastically. Maybe FaZe wouldn't even touch me if I kept on going for 6 months with bad results. So it was this deciding moment of my career. Should I just go with it and just believe I can do that way, or should I go my own way? And that's what I did.
What about in terms of just you talked about when kind of Kjaerbye came into the team and replaced Cajun. Kjaerbye is a guy that's kind of like had a bit of a reputation as being one of the more difficult talent, to work with in the Danish scene. Is any of that well deserved? Is that kind of a true? Because we all hear rumors and stuff, and it kind of felt that some of the animosity in the team was coming from Kjaerbye and you, and obviously he ends up joining North anyway because he thought it was going to be a better team to play on because of the style, as you said, he was used to. But was he a difficult guy to work with?
Actually, not. I think he was really talented the way he was listening and stuff like this. He was really improving as a player. He had a lot of potential when I played with him. Again, I played him only a few months. So how he evolved as a player and how his personality became, I have no idea. From the outside, he's a really nice guy. From what I heard, he's not that tough to work with. But you have to also put in position where he can thrive. All star players or all really great potential players need to be put in a role where they can strive as a player, right? Where they feel comfortable. And I didn't do that because I believe Dupree was a really great role that back then in Astralis. And obviously now when they got Magis to play the Cajun role. So basically the three players, Device, Dupree, and Submix, have played the same role for, I don't know, 6 years now within that core team. They just know how to play off each other, right? And putting Kjaerbye in Magis' role, it just doesn't make sense in any way. And also when they won the major with Kjaerbye and Dupree and Glaive, they had Kjaerbye playing Dupree's role and Dupree playing Cajun's old role. So they actually switched after I left the team. They switched the role as well within the team because they had to put Kjaerbye in a situation where he could perform better than he was when I was there. So it all comes down to how you put a player in, and if you put Kjaerbye in a bad role, obviously he wants to perform on a high level, and maybe it's hard to work with then. But if you put him in a situation where he's playing really great, I think he's easy to work with.
And I've got to ask as well about Zonic because a lot of people don't generally in esports kind of give a lot of love and a lot of respect to the coaches, but where Zonic's concerned, he seems to have been such a big part of Astralis' success that he does seem to get a lot of love and attention. And he was Coach of the Year at the Esports Awards. I think that's probably well deserved. When you were working with him, can you talk a little bit about what it was like to have a coach kind of like him in the team and what he brought to the team and what your working relationship was like together?
Yeah, back then when we got Zonic, he was still new into coaching. That means he had some things to learn and he had to know his role within the team. I think one funny story is that I always know Zonic from back in the days. He always scared to kick people, so I always got someone else to in 1.6 to do dirty work, right?
Yeah, right.
But when you're the coach, you have nothing else but you to do the dirty work, right? So I realized that once we're in New York, he gave me a warning about if you don't perform, you have to you're basically out if you don't perform for the next few months, right? So, and I could see for the first time Zonic that it was really tough on him actually giving a warning to someone. And at that moment, I think that was the turning point for Zonic to become this kind of father of the team and also leader outside the team. That he actually makes sure that everybody is performing a high level, not only inside the game but also outside game. He's a really nice guy, one of the nicest guy I ever met since 1.6. Always been there, and he's always there, right, as a friend as well. So obviously, I think he's the best coach in CSGO history so far. He's doing a great job for the team, and I think a lot of the success Astralis has also has comes down to Zonic. He's great in all situations. He's also the guy who did this double nades, finding new things for Astralis. And I don't know, he works hard. I can see sometimes on Steam he's up very early, sitting on his own server and creating tactics. So he's a guy that works really hard for the team, and I think he deserves the recognition he have gone, and he's the best Indian leader so far, best coach so far.
So here's the tough question. Given how everything worked out over at Astralis, especially since they added Magisk to the lineup, and obviously how everything worked out at FaZe, with all of their ups and downs. Do you have any regrets? Do you think maybe it might have been better to try and stick with the Danish guys and maybe try and make it work? Do you look over at all of their trophies and accolades, because they're the greatest CSGO team of all time? There's no doubt about it. Do you think that maybe you could have turned it around if you'd stayed?
I never really lived in regrets. It was a decision made of how I felt, and I know myself. If I don't feel 100% doing something, it can be study, friendship, everything in life. If I don't do it 100%, I cannot stay motivated. So at that moment, I knew in Astralis, if I keep on going, it's really tough for me. I'm not feeling happy every day I wake up. Like, that's one of the most important thing for me, is that every day I wake up, I'm happy about going to the PC, practicing, improving as a team. If I don't have that feeling, I know I'm just gonna go in a negative spiral. And at that moment in Astralis, we didn't have the sports psychologist. We just started to get that, but we didn't really implement it yet. So maybe that would have helped in some way to improve that mentality or whatever situation. But I don't really live in regrets. I think everything happens for a reason. I put myself maybe in a situation, but also I believe if I wake up, I can turn it around for another team, and also again, I think with FaZe, there's something out of my control with Olof that could not have been changed. Maybe it would be different if Olof didn't go away. Maybe it would be different if we won the two tournaments, Major and Katowice. Maybe Olof could keep playing. Nobody knows, right? But I never looked back at the Astralis where I thought to myself, why did I leave? There was a reason I left. There's a reason why they became so good. It's because they got the perfect match. So whatever happens, if FaZe becomes the best team in the world next year, it doesn't really matter, because there was a reason why it happened. And maybe down the line, 10 years from now, I regret something. But right now, I just don't regret. I just wake up every day happy. And that's the most important thing for me, because it's hard to work if you're not happy.
Well, look, we're all out of time. It's been great. It's been a good trip down memory lane. The question I always end the interviews with is just kind of what you guys are going to be doing next, both obviously on a personal level and with your team Mousesports.
We have a few terms coming up now. We have very busy December month to close out the season. Obviously, we want to try to end the year in top 5. It's gonna be tough, but next year our goal is to become a top 5 contender. I just want to say thanks to all the Mousesports fans out there and the people watching here, listening to us talking for 1 hour. Can be boring sometimes, but it's good.
I think it's been fascinating. I've had a great time. So.
Me too. But for the people who are watching out there, thank you, and thank you for inviting me on the show.
No worries. It's always good to catch up. And as I said, I'll be wishing you all the best. Big fan of your work and of course of Mousesports in general. So best of luck for the future tournaments. And there you have it, guys. For me, one of the greatest in-game leaders in World Counter-Strike, Karrigan, fresh off another tournament win. I'm sure there'll be some more of those in his future. And all I have to say here is, just before we sign off, is obviously make sure that if you enjoyed this content, you subscribe to the YouTube channel. You click that little bell that they've got now to make sure you get notified of the content, and you continue to support Rivalry here on the Rivalry CS channel. Great sponsor to work with, done so much good work for Counter-Strike, so show them some love. Anyway, thanks a lot, Karrigan, and from me, ta-ta.